Yes, Prabhu, we can see the screen.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, and is the voice clear enough?
Yes, yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
It's clear.
Okay. Okay, so today we're beginning with an introduction to the Nectar of Devotion. So, as you can see the title here, the title on Srila Prabhupada's book, The Nectar of Devotion, The Complete Science of Bhakti Yoga. Srila Prabhupada very often said that Krishna consciousness is a science. So what do we mean by science? Can somebody say?
It's very
Mm.
If you follow certain process. Okay, go ahead.
Specific requirement and what is the process and how to achieve it. I think which suffices this requirement can be called as science, Prabhu.
Okay, so there's a process and there's specific requirements, and then you get a result,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Yes,
If you follow the process, definitely you will achieve the desired result.
Okay, good.
Something
Okay.
like that.
Okay, good. That's precise. So if you follow the process, then you will get the results. Just like there are scientific experiments one may do in a laboratory. So one has to follow certain specific temperature and pressure conditions and do the experiment, then one can expect the result. But if the proper conditions are not fulfilled, then one cannot expect to get the result, isn't it? So similarly, Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, is a science. That means if one follows the process perfectly as given by the acharyas, then the result is guaranteed. But at the same time, if one does not follow the process perfectly as given by the acharyas, one cannot expect the result. That means it's a science. So science also means that it is something which is universally applicable. It's not something which is applicable in one place, not applicable in another place. Srila Prabhupada's simple example, just like 2 + 2 = 4, is a universal principle. It is applicable everywhere, whether it's Hyderabad or New York, it doesn't make a difference. And another of Srila Prabhupada's example is hydrogen plus oxygen is equal to water. That's also a universal principle everywhere. So similarly, the principles of devotional service are applicable in all time, place, circumstances. That's the meaning of a science. It's not that it's applicable in some place, it's not applicable in some other place. No, it's not like that. So what Srila Rupa Goswami is presenting here is a complete science, the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. So therefore, what Srila Rupa Goswami has presented, what Srila Prabhupada has presented is complete. There's nothing lacking. And so if we only understand properly what Srila Prabhupada has presented, what our acharyas have presented, then we understand the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. And it is up to us how we want to apply this science within our own lives. But Srila Prabhupada in so many of his purports, his lectures, has mentioned this point again and again, that if you follow the process perfectly, then the results are guaranteed. Okay, so we find that the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a very important philosophical literature amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And we find that there are various commentaries on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami has written the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, one of the most important literatures amongst his various contributions. He completed it in 1541 and has 2,129 verses. The most prominent commentaries on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are that of Jiva Goswami, Durgama Sangama Tika, Sangamani Tika, resolving the difficult to expand upon the difficult sections of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Bhakti Sar Pradarshini, revealing the essence of Bhakti, and the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, a drop of nectarian ocean of devotion. Also, especially important is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma. So these are some of the important commentaries on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Srinivas Acharya has written the famous Sri Sri Shad Goswami Ashtakam. So we just like to recite this stanzas of the Shad Goswami Ashtakam. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarinau Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padarvinda Bhajana Nandena Mattaliko Vande Rupa Sanatanav Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. Somebody can read this, please.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Go ahead, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Yeah, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Sri Radha and Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So we find that the 6 Goswamis, most of them coming from highly aristocratic, wealthy families. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, they were highly learned in so many languages, and born in Brahmana families. But still, they left everything. So they left everything, went to Vrindavan, leading very simple lives. Practically no accommodation, just living under different trees every night. And their only purpose was to give literatures and establish holy place of pilgrimage for the benefit of the whole world. So Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau Sadharma Samsthapako. So they studied so many of the Shastras, and they took out the essence of all the Shastras and presented it within their literatures. For what purpose? Lokanam Hitakarino. Simply for the welfare of the whole world, of the people of the world. That was their only purpose in presenting these various literatures. Okay, lecture of Srila Prabhupada. Somebody would like to read this, please?
Okay, Hare Krishna. Formerly, the society was not so much degraded. As soon as you give evidence from the Vedic literature, they would accept. So these Goswamis were making research from Vedic literature, Samaveda, Rigveda, and Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Puranas, Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavatam. You will find in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu evidences, Nana Shastra.
Yes, so as we will study the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we'll see that how Srila Rupa Goswami has taken evidences from so many scriptures in order to establish the authenticity of whatever he's writing. So in this prayer of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he says, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti, Kabe Hama Bhujabo Se Yugala Piriti. When I'm eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendent loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Srila Prabhupada would very often quote this stanza from Srila Narottam Das Thakur's prayers, and he would say that understanding Radha and Krishna is not so cheap. And so therefore, in order to understand Radha and Krishna, one has to follow in the footsteps of the Goswamis, and one has to understand the literature given by the Goswamis. Then only it will be possible for one to understand Radha and Krishna. So in order to have a better understanding or understand the value of the literature that has been given by an author, it is also very important to understand the glories of the author so that we can better appreciate the literature that he has given. So therefore, we'll briefly go through some of the important aspects of Srila Rupa Goswami and his life and contributions. So who is Srila Rupa Goswami? In the prayers that we offer, we chant this prayer, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale. Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will he give me shelter under his lotus feet? So it is described that Srila Rupa Goswami, he Manobhishtam means he understood the mind, he understood the hearts of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is illustrated in a well-known pastime during Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra festival at Jagannath Puri. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with all the devotees, was ecstatically chanting and dancing in front of Lord Jagannath's Rath cart. At the same time, he was chanting various prayers. There was one particular prayer which he was chanting, which was quite bewildering to all the devotees, because it sounded like a mundane love song between a young boy and a young girl. So many of the devotees were bewildered. But Srila Rupa Goswami, he understood the inner meaning of that song, and he put it down on a palm leaf, and he stuck the palm leaf in the roof of the thatched cottage, and he went to take a bath. In the meantime, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there, and he happened to see that writing of Srila Rupa Goswami. And when he read that, he expressed to Swarup Damodar Goswami, how is it that Srila Rupa Goswami has understood the inner recesses of my heart? And to that, Swarup Damodar Goswami replies, my dear Lord, it's not at all very surprising, because Srila Rupa Goswami has become a recipient of your mercy. So in this way, we find that Srila Rupa Goswami was a very intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and could actually very well understand the mind, the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are all known as Rupa Nugas, the followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. As Srila Prabhupada writes in the preface to the Nectar of Instruction, the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. How? We are called Rupa Nuga. Anuga means following, following the footsteps of Rupa Goswami. So as Rupa Goswami is following his predecessor, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so we have to follow our predecessor, then we will be successful. So Rupa Goswami is one of our prominent acharyas within our line, and so therefore Srila Prabhupada has said that we are Rupa Nugas, and therefore it becomes our duty to very carefully understand the teachings of Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Gaur Ganodesh Deepika, Sri Rupa Goswami is described to be the gopi named Sri Rupa Manjari. And in Golok Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani is lovingly served by 8 principal gopis, of whom Lalita Sakhi is her dearest friend. These intimate maidservants of Srimati Radhika are assisted by 8 main manjaris, with Sri Rupa Manjari being the leader. They please the sweet divine couple by carrying messages, preparing tasty beverages, stringing fragrant flower garlands, etc. In the pure spiritual forms as maidservant Manjaris, the 6 Goswamis plus Loknath and Krishna's Kavraj Goswamis comprise the inner circle of Manjaris. So this is a list of all the acharyas within our sampradaya and their respective forms as Manjaris in the spiritual world, as given by Manidhi Swami in his book Prabhupada Radha Damodar. So we definitely consider ourselves to be blessed and very fortunate that so many of our acharyas within our Gaudiya Vaishnava line are actually such intimate associates of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna, descending right from the spiritual world of Golok Vrindavan. So it is said, before creation of this cosmic manifestation, the Lord enlightened the heart of Lord Brahma with the details of the creation and manifested the Vedic knowledge. As we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested the Vedic sound vibration within the heart of Adi Kavaye, that is Lord Brahma. In exactly the same way, the Lord, being anxious to revive the Vrindavan pastimes of Lord Krishna, impregnated the heart of Rupa Goswami with spiritual potency. By this potency, Srila Rupa Goswami could revive the activities of Krishna and Vrindavan, activities almost lost to memory. In this way, he spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So as we know, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Vrindavan, at that time, practically there was nothing in Vrindavan, and none of the holy places were manifest. Everything was unmanifest. Even Radhakund, Shamkund were just small puddles of water in paddy fields. But it was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who recognized them, and then he gave that service to these Goswamis, especially Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, to revive and excavate these lost holy places of pilgrimage in Vrindavan. And so, in order for them to do so, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu invested his own potency, spiritual potency, within the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami in order for these holy places of pilgrimage to be excavated in Vrindavan so that people all over the world would take advantage. And of course, now people from all over the world go to Vrindavan and visit all these holy places. But it is only because of the great efforts of all these Goswamis that now we have the advantage of having darshan of all these holy places. In 1933, at Srila Prabhupada's initiation, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati instructed him to study this book, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the law book on devotional service. Okay, so that's how important Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur considered Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, that he instructed our Srila Prabhupada to read this book because it is the law book on devotional service. So just like a law book has various law codes, and to substantiate each of these law codes, there are evidences and all that. So similarly, the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu is also a law book where so many rules and regulations of devotional service and like law codes are being enunciated with proper evidences and reasoning as to why these law codes, these rules and regulations need to be followed. What are the consequences of following? What are the consequences of not following? So all that has been explained in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Okay, somebody can read this, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat. Srila Prabhupada accepted sannyasa on September 17, 1959, moved to an upstairs room at the Radha Damodar temple, and concentrated his energy on translating into English and purporting the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada at Radha Damodar. This corner at the Radha Damodar temple is just like the hub of the wheel of the spiritual world. It is the center, Srila Prabhupada. I eternally reside in my rooms at the Radha Damodar temple, Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
So we find that Srila Prabhupada, he considered the Radha Damodar temple to be extremely important just like the hub of the wheel of the spiritual worlds. And so after accepting sannyas, Srila Prabhupada moved to the Radha Damodar temple, and I'm sure most of us have visited those rooms where Srila Prabhupada was staying. And why did he shift to these rooms? That is being spoken over here. Please read.
Srila
Hare
Prabhupada,
Krishna Prabhuji. Read Mataji, read.
Srila Prabhupada's decision to stay in the Radha Damodar Mandir was an indication of his conscious and fervent desire to live, serve, and write under the shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami, and to very practically seek his blessings for his life's mission of translating the Srimad Bhagavatam and preaching in the West. Prabhupada at Radha
Yes.
Damodar.
So we find that this was the reason why he shifted to the Radha Damodar temple. It was his conscious and fervent desire to live, serve, and write under the shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami. So he wanted to seek the blessings of Srila Rupa Goswami for his life's mission of translating the Srimad Bhagavatam and preaching in the West, which were the principal instructions which he received from his spiritual master. So we find that Srila Prabhupada, he considered this place very, very important. I would like to narrate one pastime out of the many pastimes that took place when Srila Prabhupada was staying at the Radha Damodar temple. I don't know if some of you have read this book, Srila Prabhupada, A Friend to All, by Mula Prakriti Mataji. This is quite a rare book where there are pastimes of Srila Prabhupada before he went to the West. Usually we hear of pastimes after Srila Prabhupada went to the West, but this is one beautiful book where Srila Prabhupada's pastimes before he went to the West have been described. So one pastime that is described when Srila Prabhupada was staying at the Radha Damodar temple is narrated by one devotee who was staying just adjacent to the Radha Damodar temple. So this Rajvasi who was staying there, he narrates this pastime when he was a child. So he was a child at that time, and staying just beside the Radha Damodar temple, the roof of his house was overlooking the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. And so every night he would hear somebody sobbing and crying, and that would sort of disturb his sleep. So this continued on for some days, and he was wondering, from where is this sound coming? So one day or one night, he climbed to the roof of his house, which was overlooking the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. In those days, the Radha Damodar temple, the courtyard was all open, unlike now. Now most of it is covered, but in those days it was all open. So he could see right from the roof, he could see into the courtyard. And there he saw this elderly sannyasi sweeping and cleaning in the courtyard in front of Rupa Goswami's samadhi. And as he was doing so, he was weeping and crying. And that's how, of course, at that point of time, he didn't know who the sannyasi was. But then later on, after Srila Prabhupada went to the West, returned back to Vrindavan, then he recognized that this is the same sannyasi. And so he could understand that how Srila Prabhupada at that time was literally begging, crying, and praying for the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami so that he would carry out these practically impossible instructions given by his spiritual master. And so that's how Srila Prabhupada, in order to receive that mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami, was staying in these rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. This is a pastime written by Harishauri Prabhu in his Transcendental Diary. Can somebody please read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So when you went to Vrindavana, you had given up the idea of coming to the West? No, coming to the West, the idea was there, but I was planning how to go there, how to preach there, how to take some books, how to bring them, everything alone. So as soon as you had some books, then you were, yes, then I decided everything was being dictated by superior. With Srila Prabhupada in such a congenial mood, I took the courage to broach something Harikesha once mentioned to me. I was told that one day you were told by Rupa Goswami that you must go. Prabhupada's mood changed slightly, but that was open secret, he said dismissively. Everyone knew. Then he changed the subject.
Okay, so there was an indication that Srila Prabhupada actually received a direct instruction from Srila Rupa Goswami to go to the West and preach. And so this is what is revealed, that Rupa Goswami actually in a vision appeared to Srila Prabhupada at the Radha Damodar temple rooms and said, Maharaj, don't worry about anything, go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the chanting of Hare Krishna. You will be successful, I guarantee, because I will be right with you all the time. And of course, it's not very surprising because even on the Jaladuta, after Srila Prabhupada had those heart attacks, that time also we see that how Lord Krishna, along with all the acharyas, appeared to Srila Prabhupada and said something similar, that the Lord said that, yes, we are there right behind you to help you with this preaching mission. So that's how Srila Prabhupada was so empowered by Srila Rupa Goswami and the acharyas. So therefore, we should consider ourselves very fortunate to be in ISKCON, to be a part of this wonderful mission of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami, coming in the direct line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so therefore, there is so much of empowerment, so much of potency, so much of mercy flowing within this movement. As Srila Prabhupada so often said, that this movement is the moment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And so therefore, we have to understand the spiritual potency of this movement, and by carefully studying and following the instructions of Srila Rupa Goswami, we can access that spiritual potency. Okay, so this is a few words on Srila Rupa Goswami. Any questions or comments so far? Okay, we are going to the preface of the Nectar of Devotion. So if you have your books, then you can kindly open to the preface. So initially, Srila Prabhupada has given a brief history of the meeting of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Rupa Goswami, so all that is mentioned. So Bhakti means devotion, Rasa means mellow or a relationship, Amrita means nectar, that is eternal. Sindhu means an ocean. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada has translated the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu as the nectar of devotion. So Srila Prabhupada in this lecture is saying that Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the Sanskrit word, we have shortcut the translation nectar of devotion. Rupa Goswami's purpose is to present the ocean of Bhakti Ras. Rasa means mellow, the juice. It is just like ocean. This ocean has limitation, but that is unlimited. The ocean in this material world, there's a limitation. There are banks, but the ocean of devotional service is unlimited. Everything in the spiritual world is unlimited. Okay, this is another lecture of Srila Prabhupada. Please read.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji. Go ahead, Mataji.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compared bhakti to a great ocean. When he was speaking before Rupa Goswami, he said that it is just like an ocean. So I will take a drop of it and you taste it and you will understand what is this ocean. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described a small portion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti devotional service, there is a rasa, taste, and taste is Amrita, eternal. Nectar of Devotion.
Okay, so what has been described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is just a small portion, a drop of the ocean of devotional service. So even the drop is so vast and so unfathomable and so inconceivable. And what to speak of the ocean. Okay, so now can somebody read from the preface? Bhakti means devotional service. If you have seen that paragraph, this is almost towards the end of the second page of the preface.
Yes, Prabhuji. Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please go ahead.
Bhakti means devotional service. Every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. Every one of us within this world is perpetually engaged in some sort of service, and the impetus for such service is the pleasure we derive from it. Driven by affection for his wife and children, a family man works day and night. A philanthropist works in the same way for love of the greater family, and a nationalist for the cause of his country and countrymen. That force which drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called Rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship, whose taste is very sweet.
Okay, fine. Okay, so here Srila Prabhupada is defining what is the meaning of rasa, bhakti rasa. So Srila Prabhupada is defining what is the meaning of rasa. So rasa, Srila Prabhupada says that actually we don't have an appropriate equivalent translation in English, but a sort of translation which comes very close is a mellow or a relationship. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining here that a person, he performs an activity because of a relationship, as is giving these examples. So family man works hard day and night because there's a relationship with the other family members, his wife and children, and to satisfy them, to please them, then he works. That is the impetus. The relationship is the impetus for him to do that hard work. So similarly, a philanthropist, he has a relationship with the society, with the other people. And so because of that relationship, again, he wants to satisfy those people of the society. And therefore, he's working. He's trying to do some welfare activity because of the relationship. Similarly, a nationalist, people are ready to give up their lives for the country. Why? Because they consider themselves to be a member of that nation. They have a relationship with that nation, and that relationship is what drives them, which gives them the impetus to do that service for the nation. So every activity, every service is based upon that relationship. And that is basically what is called as rasa. And so similarly, then when one comes to devotional service, then it is that relationship with the devotees, the relationship with the Supreme Lord, that gives us the impetus to perform devotional activities in order to satisfy Krishna, to satisfy the devotees. So that is the impetus which drives us to perform various activities. So that relationship is what is called as rasa. All right. So now, essentially, Srila Prabhupada describes two types of rasas. One is the mundane rasa, and the second is the bhakti rasa. So Lilananda Prabhu, is it possible to have that? There's an online whiteboard, isn't it?
We never tried it.
Actually, you never tried it, huh?
Yeah. I think if you're a host, you can try, Prabhu.
Yeah, I can give so host permissions.
Yeah, 1 minute.
So
the
if somebody
option
knows,
is there in this whiteboard option is there, Prabhuji. You need to just
right.
unshare.
So I think so.
and then-
Whoever knows how to operate it can open it, and maybe that.
Sunil Prabhu, are you doing that?
Whoever is sharing, no, whoever is sharing, you need to.
No, Prabhuji,
unshare
you have
first.
sharing permissions, Prabhu. Everybody has sharing permissions. You can
No,
share your
you have to
screen.
unshare. Like you have to.
Okay, so I will stop sharing. Correct. That's what I
Yeah,
have to
stop sharing. Yeah.
do. Yes, fine. I'll do that.
You're able to view it, Prabhuji?
Yes.
And you're able to like edit and
Are you able to use it?
you want me to use it or you would be using
Yes, yes, you can go ahead. I'm going to raise a question now, and whatever responses come, you can just note down.
Okay.
You're able to type?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I can do it if.
Hare Krishna, Sunil Prabhu. You're on mute, Prabhu. Okay, somebody else is able to do it. Who's that? Can you try
It's
that?
me. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Please,
Thank you.
yeah. Yes, Prabhuji, I can type the question now.
Mataji, maybe you can type something, Nectar of Devotion, and maybe try so that we can see.
Okay. I just wrote the Nectar of Devotion. Can you see it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can see.
Okay, fine. Okay, so can you make 2 columns?
Yes, sure.
Yes, so make 2 columns. Write on one side mundane rasa, and on the other side you write bhakti rasa. Yes, then you can also write bhakti rasa on the other side.
Yes, Prabhuji, I did that. Can you see it?
Mataji, that other column is on the side. We can't see it. You have to bring it.
For me, it's showing as in middle only.
Yeah. Now we can see both.
Okay. No, someone else draw the line here.
Okay, fine. If it's just getting complicated, it's okay. No problem. We'll just have an oral discussion. Okay, now you can type.
I'll try, Prabhuji. You can continue, Prabhuji. I'll try.
Okay, fine. Okay, so somebody can tell the differences between mundane rasa and bhakti rasa. Anyone can contribute some few points.
Mundane rasa is temporary, bhakti rasa permanent.
Okay, fine. Mundane rasa is temporary, bhakti rasa is permanent.
And then rasa
Okay.
might be between living entities. Bhakti rasa is between living entity and Krishna.
Okay, mundane rasa is between the living entities and bhakti rasa is between living entities and Krishna. Okay, fine, good. Something
Mundane
more?
rasa take out the energy, and then bhakti rasa gives the energy.
What do you mean by that?
No, mainly you will get a lot of tired, okay, when you're participating in mundane rasa, Prabhuji. And then bhakti rasa gives the energy and strength. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, okay, fine. Some more differences?
Mundane rasa put you in karma bandhan. Bhakti rasa takes you out of the karma bandhan.
Okay, good. Okay, so the mundane rasa is a cause of bondage, whereas bhakti rasa is a cause of liberation. Okay, good.
Mundane
Mundane
rasa is
rasa
for
is
sense gratification, Prabhuji. But that is for renunciation.
Okay, so the mundane rasa is based upon sense gratification or gratifying one's own senses. The bhakti rasa, we try to satisfy Krishna's senses. Okay, good. Some more differences?
Mundane rasa is limited, Prabhuji. Limited and contained, and bhakti rasa is unlimited.
Okay, good point. Yes, mundane rasa is limited. The bhakti rasa is unlimited. Okay, fine. Some more differences?
Prabhuji, mundane rasa is actually not a rasa, it's just absence of some distress. And bhakti rasa is actually the.
Okay, so you're referring to material happiness. Material happiness is actually an absence of distress. That's correct. But the real happiness is in the bhakti ras. That's correct. That's correct. What else?
I have missed some points. If somebody could repeat.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay. No problem.
mundane rasa is kind of temporary, and it's all
Yes,
about.
that point has been covered.
Already covered. Okay.
Yes, mundane rasa is temporary, bhakti rasa is eternal. Okay, to add a few more. Go ahead.
This is born out of illusion, mundane rasa, and bhakti rasa is born out of knowledge.
Okay, good point. The mundane rasa is born out of illusion. The bhakti rasa is born out of knowledge. Okay, good.
Mundane rasa is with the lower energies of Lord, and bhakti rasa is between Atma and Paramatma.
Okay, okay, fine. The mundane rasa is influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance usually.
Mundane
Whereas the
rasas
bhakti
will
rasa is
bring
more
anxiety.
transcendental. Huh?
Mundane rasas will bring anxieties, but bhakti
Oh.
rasa will bring happiness.
Okay, fine. Okay, so the mundane rasa will bring material anxieties. The bhakti rasa will bring real happiness, which could, spiritual anxiety also can actually bring real happiness. So in spiritual life also there could be anxieties, but that's a cause of happiness.
So the mundane rasa make you tiring, bhakti rasa make you refresh.
Okay, mundane rasa could be tiring, bhakti rasa refreshing. Okay.
It might, I don't know if it's right, but mundane rasa can taste like nectar in the beginning, but poison at the end.
Correct.
Bhakti
And
rasa
bhakti rasa
sometimes can be feeling like difficult in the beginning, but it will certainly be nectar at the end.
Yes, yes. This is Krishna describes this in the Bhagavad Gita. You have finished that, right? Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter.
Yeah.
Krishna describes this happiness in the three modes. So yes, happiness in the lower modes will be like will be like nectar in the beginning, but poison at the end. But in Bhakti Rasa, it may be like poison at the beginning, but will be nectar then. Yes, that's a good point.
Prabhuji, Bhakti Rasa can only be with Supreme, but mundane Rasa with anyone.
Say that again, please.
Bhakti Rasa can only be performed with Supreme, but mundane
Okay.
Rasa with any other.
Okay, fine. So Bhakti Rasa essentially is a relationship with the Supreme. Mundane Rasa is basically between different living entities.
Yeah, Bhakti Rasa is given by the Supreme Lord, and mundane Rasa is kind of taken, or I don't know what is the right word for that. You know.
Okay, the mundane Rasa is basically because of the living entities trying to enjoy separate from the Lord.
Yeah.
Whereas the Bhakti Rasa is when one tries to establish one's relationship with God. Okay, fine. So these.
Bhakti Rasa teaches us how to love God.
Yes. And mundane Rasa?
Doesn't teach us anything practice. It teaches only sense gratification, but this teaches us love for God.
Okay, so basically, so there is love in Bhakti Rasa. There is love in mundane Rasa. It is basically lust, kama and prema. So kama is atmendriya priti vancha, trying to satisfy one's own senses, whereas prema means krishnendriya priti vancha, trying to satisfy Krishna's senses. Okay, fine. So these are some of the differences between mundane Rasa and Bhakti Rasa. Okay, so let's have our screen back. So whoever is using can.
Yeah. Should I just share it, right?
Huh?
I'll just share it to my.
Mataji, you can just stop sharing it.
Yes.
Prabhu is the owner
Just
of this.
stop sharing, Mataji.
Okay. I actually didn't start sharing. So
No,
I will stop share. I'll stop share.
Yeah, sure. Whoever started it.
Okay, fine. So now we will read from Srila Prabhupada's book. So somebody can continue reading. Bhakti Ras is a mellow different from the ordinary ras.
Prabhu, I can read.
Go ahead.
Bhakti Rasa is a mellow, different from the ordinary rasa enjoyed by mundane workers. Mundane workers labor very hard day and night in order to relish a certain kind of rasa, which is understood as sense gratification. The relish of or taste of the mundane rasa does not long endure, and therefore mundane workers are always apt to change their position of enjoyment. A businessman is not satisfied by working the whole week. Therefore, wanting a change for the weekend, he goes to a place where he tries to forget his business activities. Then, after the week spent in forgetfulness, he again changes his position and resumes his actual business activities. Material engagement means accepting a particular status for some time and then changing it. This position of changing back and forth is technically known as Bhogatyaga, which means a position of alternating sense enjoyment and renunciation. A living entity cannot steadily remain either in sense enjoyment or in renunciation. Change is going on perpetually, and we cannot be happy in either state because of our eternal constitutional position. Sense gratification does not endure for long, and it is therefore called Chapala Sukha or flickering happiness. For example, an ordinary family man who works very hard day and night and is successful in giving comforts to the family members of his family, thereby relishes a kind of mellow. But his whole advancement of material happiness immediately terminates along with his body as soon as his life is over. Death is therefore taken as the representative of God for the atheistic class of men. The devotee realizes the presence of God by devotional service, whereas the atheist realizes the presence of God in the shape of death. At death, everything is finished, and one has to begin a new chapter of life in a new situation, perhaps higher or lower than the last one. In any field of activity, political, social, national, or international, the result of our actions will be finished with the end of life, that is sure.
Okay. So Srila Prabhupada is describing two essential characteristics of the mundane ras. The first one which he speaks of is bhog and tyag. That is a position of alternating sense enjoyment and renunciation. So as Srila Prabhupada writes, that the relish or taste of the mundane ras does not long endure, and therefore mundane workers are always apt to change their position of enjoyment. So this is something which is very, very important, that anything on the mundane platform, on the material platform, does not long endure, and one always wants a change. So Srila Prabhupada is given the example of the businessman, or it could be anyone doing a job, an IT job, or whatever it may be. So anyone who is doing a job or a business or whatever, what's he looking forward to? Anybody can say? What's he looking forward to in the course of his activities?
Constant growth.
Some kind of happiness, Prabhuji.
Okay, some kind of happiness, that's correct. But
Growth
as one
also,
is...
growth in position.
Huh?
Growth in position.
Okay, as one is working for 5 days, 6 days, then what is one looking for?
Yes.
Money,
Huh?
money.
Some time off.
Money.
Money, okay.
Some rest.
For a
Huh,
break.
say that?
Some
Holiday, holiday.
Break. Yes, one is looking for a holiday. One is looking for a break. Correct? Why? Why is one looking for a break? That means the work is not actually giving one happiness. That is why he's looking for a break. He's looking for he's looking forward towards the weekend. He's looking for some holiday. I think so sometimes people, right at the beginning of the year, the most important thing that they look forward is a list of the holidays to make their plans. So one is very eagerly looking forward towards holidays and breaks, because the work by itself is not really giving one happiness. So one is always looking for a change. And so one works for 5 days or 6 days, then one is looking forward towards the weekend. Then on the weekend, one goes to some holiday resort, maybe some hill station or some other place. And then one enjoys over there. And then after that, maybe 2 days of enjoyment. And then after that, one again comes back because one knows one cannot be permanently in that situation, nor does one feel satisfied in that situation. One has to change. So on the material platform, there is always a need for change. One is always looking forward towards a change, because any situation in the material platform does not give one true happiness. And that's what Srila Prabhupada is writing. The relish or taste of the mundane ras does not long endure. So therefore, we find on the material platform, one is always looking forward towards a change. And therefore, we find people want to change so many things. People want to change jobs. People want to change mobiles, their cars, houses, maybe places of residence. So many things people want to change all the time. And of course, the businessmen take advantage of that, and they make slight changes in the mobile or the car, and they bring out new models. And as soon as a new model comes out, then people are always looking forward to get the new models. Am I right? So why? Because there is no happiness in any given one situation. And therefore, one is always looking forward towards a change. This is a very important principle for us to understand in our practices of devotional service, because if we are practicing devotional service with material contamination, with material motives, or on a material platform, then even within devotional service, one will tend to have the same consciousness. Because on the material platform, no activity can satisfy one. And so even if a devotional activity is performed with a material consciousness, it cannot satisfy one. And then one will look forward again towards a change. So then, even within devotional service, then one will see that one is always looking for a change. So maybe a change in the books one is reading. So after reading Prabhupada's books for some time, then one thinks, so how long to go on with these same books? Now I need a change, something else. And maybe change in the devotees one is associating with, maybe a change in services all the time. Okay, one doesn't want one service for some days, no satisfaction, then I want another service, then all the time looking forward towards a change. So the same mentality could creep in even within the practices of devotional service. And then that creates a problem because there is no satisfaction, even within the practice of devotional service. So, and then because some things within devotional service cannot be changed, we cannot be changing mantras, isn't it? Our chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra remains the same. But if one is doing that with material motives, with material consciousness, then after some time, the chanting of the holy names could be boring. Reading of Srila Prabhupada's books could be boring. Attending the same Mangalarti, the same Artis, singing the same songs, all that could be boring after some time if one is doing with a material consciousness. And so, if one is feeling boredom in the practices of devotional service, then it's an indication that one may be probably performing devotional activities in material consciousness. Then it's a sign that we need to uplift our consciousness to a transcendental platform, to a more spiritual platform, and perform our activities with spiritual consciousness for the purpose of satisfying Guru and Krishna. Then we will develop the taste to perform our devotional activities, and one will find satisfaction in performing the same devotional activities again and again. As Srila Prabhupada spoke in many of his lectures, that our devotees, they can chant the same Hare Krishna Mahamantra 24 hours a day. But if one chants any mundane sound vibration like Mr. John, how long can one chant? He cannot chant for long. So if one is finding boredom in one's devotional practices, then it gives an indication for us to introspect our own motives in our devotional practices and what is the consciousness with which I'm performing. So that's a significant point, a significant characteristic about the mundane rasa. And the other important characteristic that Prabhupada is speaking of is chapala sukha. That means it is flickering happiness. So as somebody has already said, that actually material happiness is no happiness at all. It is simply an absence of distress, which is perceived as happiness due to the illusion of the material energy. Srila Prabhupada's famous example, or Prahlad Maharaj's famous example, Mrigatrishni Rupa, Mrigatrishna, that means the mirage in the desert. So just like the animal in the desert, he perceives as if there is water in the desert, but then when he actually goes there, there is no water. It's only dry, hot sand. And the animal is not satisfied, but then he perceives water somewhere else. Then he runs towards that, but then there is no water there. Then again he runs. In this way, the animal keeps running and running, but he never gets water, finally dies. That is the nature of material happiness. Very much illusory and very much eluding one. So one thinks that, okay, I'll perform this activity, I'll get some happiness. No, there's no happiness. Then another activity, maybe some happiness, no happiness. Then maybe some other activity, maybe I'll find happiness, no happiness. In this way, a man or person continues to perform one material activity after the other throughout his life, but never is successful in finding any happiness, and he dies a frustrated life. That's material life. And so one has to be convinced that on the material platform, there is no happiness. It is only an absence of distress, which is perceived to be happiness. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada, all right, so Prahlad Maharaj also says that if one wants to be happy in the material world, then stop looking for happiness in the material world, because it's a wrong place to look for happiness. So these are some of the characteristics of mundane rasa, and in contrast to the characteristics of bhakti rasa. Okay, somebody can continue reading, please. So those are the characteristics of the mundane rasa, and now Prabhupada.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
Bhakti rasa, however, the mellow relished in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, does not finish with the end of life. It continues perpetually and is therefore called Amrita, that which does not die but exists eternally. This is confirmed in all Vedic literature. Bhagavad Gita says that a little advancement in Bhakti rasa can save the devotee from the greatest danger, that of missing the opportunity for human life. The rasas derived from our feelings in social life, in family life, or in greater family life of altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, socialism, communism, etc., do not guarantee that one's next life will be as a human being. We prepare our next life by our actual activities in the present life. A living entity is offered.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So here Srila Prabhupada is making another important point regarding Bhakti Rasa, and that is, it is Amrita, that means it is eternal. So somebody can tell us what is this verse from the Bhagavad Gita that Srila Prabhupada is talking about over here? Yes, yes, good. Neha Vikramana Shasti Pratibhayo Navidyate Swalpam Pyasa Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. So whatever devotional activity one performs, that is never lost. It is eternal. It's like an eternal bank account. So, and it saves one from the greatest danger. What is the greatest danger?
Missing out the opportunity for human life.
Yes, missing the opportunity for human life. So devotional service actually guarantees at least a human life in the next birth. And so that's the benefit of the Bhakti Rasa. So it is eternal, and whatever devotional service one has performed in this life is continued in the next life. But as far as material life is concerned, one gets different bodies based upon one's karmana. Karmana deva netrena jantu dehopapatyate. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is describing in the rest of that paragraph. Towards the end of that paragraph, Prabhupada writes, a human being engaged in Krishna consciousness, even if unable to complete the course of Bhakti Yoga, takes birth in the higher divisions of human society so that he can automatically further his advancement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, all bona fide activities in Krishna consciousness are Amrita or permanent. This is the subject matter of the Nectar of Devotion. Okay, so can somebody read the next paragraph, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhupada.
Yeah, you can read it.
This eternal engagement in Bhakti Rasa can be understood by a serious student upon studying the Nectar of Devotion. Adopting of Bhakti Rasa or Krishna consciousness will immediately bring one to an auspicious life, free from anxieties, and will bless one with transcendental existence, thus minimizing the value of liberation. Bhakti Rasa itself is sufficient to produce a feeling of liberation because it attracts the attention of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Generally, neophyte devotees are anxious to see Krishna or God, but God cannot be seen or known by our present materially blunt senses. The process of devotional service, as it is recommended in the Nectar of Devotion, will gradually elevate one from the material condition of life to the spiritual status, wherein the devotee becomes purified of all designations. The sense then can be uncontaminated, being constantly in touch with Bhakti Rasa. When the purified senses are employed in the service of the Lord, one becomes situated in Bhakti Rasa life, and any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna in this transcendental Bhakti Rasa stage of life can be relished perpetually. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all varieties of rasas or mellows turn into eternity. In the beginning, one is trained according to the principles of regulation under the guidance of the Acharya or spiritual master. And gradually, when is elevated, devotional service becomes automatic and spontaneous eagerness to serve Krishna. There are 12 kinds of rasas, as will be explained in this book. And by renovating our relationship with Krishna in 5 primary rasas, we can live eternally in full knowledge and bliss.
Okay, so here Srila Prabhupada is explaining that how the adoption of Bhakti Ras will immediately bring one to an auspicious life, free from anxieties, bless one with transcendental existence, thus minimizing the value of liberation. So these are some of the characteristics of pure devotional service that will be described later on. And so the Nectar of Devotion will gradually elevate one from the material condition of life to the spiritual status, where the devotee becomes purified of all designations. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahyam indriye seva mukhe jivado swayam eva spurtyada. That's what Srila Prabhupada is describing here, that when the purified senses are employed in the service of the Lord, one becomes situated in Bhakti Ras, and any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna and this transcendental Bhakti Ras state of life can be relished perpetually. So basically, one can perform devotional service only with purified senses. So initially the senses are contaminated, materially contaminated. And so with materially contaminated senses, one cannot understand the transcendental name, form, activities, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, bhakti means we purify the senses by service. Sevo and mukhehi javado, beginning with the tongue. One needs to purify the senses. And then with purified senses, it is possible for one to understand the Supreme Lord. And so that's what is basically, initially there is sadhana bhakti, then there is raga and raga bhakti. So that is how one progresses on the path of devotional service. Okay, please read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. No one can live without loving someone else. This propensity is present in every living being. Even an animal like a tiger has this loving propensity, at least in a dormant stage, and it is certainly present in the human beings. The missing point, however, is where to respond our love so that everyone can become happy. Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, no problem.
At the present moment, the human society teaches one to love his country or family or his personal self, but there is no information where to repose the loving propensity so that everyone can become happy. That missing point is Krishna. And the Nectar of Devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life. In the primary stage, a child loves his parents, then his brothers and sisters. And as he daily grows up, he begins to love his family, society, community, country, nation, or even the whole human society. But the loving propensity is not satisfied even by loving all human society. That loving propensity remains imperfectly fulfilled until we know who is the Supreme Beloved. Our love can be fully satisfied only when it is reposed in Krishna. This theme is the sum and substance of the Nectar of Devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in 5 different transcendental mellows.
Okay, fine. So here, Srila Prabhupada explained that how every living entity has the propensity to love and serve. And so therefore, in so many of his lectures, Srila Prabhupada explains that in this world, everyone is loving someone and serving someone. And as he's explaining here, that even this propensity is present even in the lower animals. Even the tiger takes care of the cubs, loves the cubs. So this propensity is present in all living entities. And so as far as the humans are concerned, they are also loving someone, serving someone. And Srila Prabhupada so many times he says that if one does not have anyone to love and serve, then at least he'll keep a dog and he will faithfully serve the dog. Recently, I was listening to a lecture where Srila Prabhupada is saying that there was one person who did not have anyone except a dog. He had no other family members, and he had a huge estate, a huge property. And so when this man died, he left that entire property for this dog. So what's a dog going to do? We don't know. But that's the point. The point is that the propensity to love and serve is there. And so therefore, one always is looking forward to someone to love and serve. But whomever one loves and serves, that does not satisfy the individual, because one does not know where to repose that loving propensity. But when one reposes that loving propensity in Krishna, then one becomes totally satisfied. Please continue reading.
Hare Krishna. Our loving propensity expands just as a vibration of light or air expands, but we do not know where it ends. The nectar of devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna. We have failed to create peace and harmony in the human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand it with a cool head. The nectar of devotion teaches all men how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. It is like pouring water on the root of a tree or supplying food to one's stomach. The method of pouring water on the root of a tree or supplying foodstuffs to the stomach is universally scientific and practical, as every one of us has experienced. Everyone knows well that when we eat something, or in other words, when we put foodstuffs in the stomach, the energy created by such action is immediately distributed throughout the whole body. Similarly, when we pour water on the root, the energy thus created is immediately distributed throughout the entirety of even the largest tree. It is not possible to water the tree part by part, nor is it possible to feed the different parts of the body separately. The nectar of devotion will teach us how to turn the one switch that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. One who does not know this method is missing the point of life.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada is making this important point here, that that people are trying to love everyone, bring about peace, unity in society, but as we can see in the present time, so much of war and so much of unrest. So even though people are trying to bring about that unity, peace, try to love other people, it's just not possible on the material platform. And as Prabhupada is going to example of the United Nations, which he did very often. And Srila Prabhupada would very often describe the United Nations as simply an assembly of barking dogs. So why? Because everyone is coming together on a mundane platform with their own individual material agendas. So when people come with different agendas, when they come together, then there are bound to be differences of opinion, quarrels and fights, because the mentality is essentially that of dogs. That means the bodily concept of life. So as long as one is in the bodily concept of life, then there cannot be peace. It is just not possible. There has to be one common goal, then only it is possible to bring peace. Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy that just like in a pond of water, if one throws stones at the same point, one can throw any number of stones at the same point in the water, there will be concentric ripples which don't clash. But if one throws stones at different points within the water, then there will be ripples which clash. So when everyone has different centers, that means different agendas, then obviously there are going to be clashes. And so therefore, any amount of attempts, Prabhupada in one conversation, I suppose, with one representative of the United Nations, Srila Prabhupada says, you can continue to make your efforts for eternity, but it is just not going to be possible to bring about peace and unity, because it is on a false platform. The foundation of bringing about peace and unity, whether it is within the small family or within the large family of the country or the large family of the entire world, if the platform on which the attempt to bring about peace and unity is wrong, then how many attempts one makes, it's just going to fail. Srila Prabhupada gives an example. They're just like in a mathematical equation or a problem. If the first step is wrong, then even though all the remaining steps, further steps may be correct, but because the first step has been wrong, then the final answer is going to be wrong. So similarly, if we are not Krishna conscious and have a common goal, a common center, then how much ever we try to bring about peace and unity, it's just not going to work. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada is writing this point. The Nectar of Devotion will teach us how to turn the one switch that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. One who does not know this method is missing the point of life. And so therefore, to bring Krishna in the center of our lives is something which is very important. It's just like watering the root of the tree or feeding the stomach, then automatically everyone else will be satisfied. Then there'll be a common purpose for which everyone is striving for, everyone is working for. And then on that common platform, there can be real peace and unity. Okay, fine. So now somebody can read the rest of the preface.
As far as material necessities are concerned, the human civilization at present moment is very much advanced in living comfortably. But still we are not happy because we are missing the point. The material comforts of life alone are not sufficient to make us happy. The vivid example is America, the richest nation of the world, having all facility for material comforts, is producing a class of men completely confused and frustrated in life. I am appealing herewith to such confused men to learn the art of devotional service as directed in the Nectar of Devotion. And I am sure that the fire of material existence burning within their heart will be immediately extinguished. The root cause of our dissatisfaction is that our dormant loving propensity has not been fulfilled despite our great advancement in the materialistic way of life. The Nectar of Devotion will give us practical hints how we can live in this material world, perfectly engaged in devotional service, and thus fulfill all our desires in this life and the next. The Nectar of Devotion is not presented to condemn any way of materialistic life, but the attempt is to give information to religious philosophers and people in general how to love Krishna. One may live without material discomfort, but at the same time, he should learn the art of loving Krishna. At the present moment, we are inventing so many ways to utilize our propensity to love, but actually we were missing the real points, Krishna. We are watering all parts of the tree, but missing the tree's root. We are trying to keep our body fit by all means, but we are neglecting to supply foodstuffs to the stomach. Missing Krishna means missing oneself also. Real self-realization and realization of Krishna go together simultaneously. For example, seeing oneself in the morning means seeing the sunrise also. Without seeing the sunshine, no one can see himself. Similarly, unless one has realized Krishna, there is no question of self-realization. The Nectar of Devotion is specifically presented for persons who are now engaged in Krishna consciousness movement. I beg to offer my sincere thanks to all my friends and disciples who are helping me to push forward the Krishna consciousness movement in the Western countries. And I beg to acknowledge with thanks the contribution made by my beloved disciple Sriman Jayananda Brahmachari. My thanks are due as well to the directors of ISKCON Press who have taken so much care in publishing this great literature. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So, yes, so Srila Prabhupada is making this point that ultimately one has to learn how to love Krishna. So one may live comfortably without discomforts. There's no problem with that. But at the same time, one has to learn how to love Krishna, because that is like watering the root of the tree, and that is what will satisfy everyone. Otherwise, materially, technologically, one may be advanced like the people of the US, but there is so much of dissatisfaction and frustration. So therefore, we all have to learn to love Krishna by practicing devotional service as given by the acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami. Here Srila Prabhupada is writing, the Nectar of Devotion is specifically presented for persons who are now engaged in the Krishna consciousness movements. So the Nectar of Devotion is specifically meant for devotees. Okay, and so it's very important for devotees to study the Nectar of Devotion carefully and try to apply it within one's life. Srila Prabhupada is thanking Jayanand Prabhu here. His disappearance day is coming up in a few days. And so Srila Prabhupada is specifically thanking him because Jayanand Prabhu, he would drive a taxi, a cab throughout the day and give all the contributions to Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada is so grateful to him for doing this service. Okay, so thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions on our discussions today?
Hare Krishna, Dhanatman.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, for shloka, there is no shloka in the book. Can you please tell which shloka is in the exam?
Okay, you'll find in your handbooks. In your handbooks, there are, I think, so 3 verses which need to be memorized.
Only 3?
Yes, yes, 3 or 4. You can check in your handbooks. The verses are there. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on our discussions today?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. Just a request. It would be nice if more devotees could keep the videos on, unless, I don't know, there's some technical problem. Just so that we have a more, maybe a more personal interaction. So already an online session is quite impersonal. And if everyone's video is off, then it becomes even more impersonal. So it's just a request if possible.
Sure. Actually, some of us are in offices, probably. That's the reason.
Oh, I see. Okay, fine. If there's some difficulty like that, no problem.
No, we will definitely try to keep us on.
Yeah, for whoever it's possible, it's okay. No.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So our next class is on Wednesday, correct?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.